You can do it. Excellent. Okay, welcome everybody to Not Just This with Don Garland and myself. Please keep your microphones muted until invited to speak. This is being broadcast live on YouTube. So by speaking, you are giving consent. But we do encourage you to, after the brief introductions, if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment, you can unmute yourself, raise your hand virtually, and I'll call on you and you can ask your question or make your comment. Also, if you're on YouTube, you can type your questions in the chat and I'll read them as a part of the broadcast today. You can also type your questions in the Zoom chat. So there's a few options there. So anyway, with that, I'll give a brief introduction, non-duality. So non-duality. I think it was about 2019. I was seeking. I was about to do recommit myself to the lessons of the Course in Miracles. And I was applying principles and methods and practices in my life because I was seeking something else. I was seeking something different, seeking something other than what is, other than this. I thought there was a higher, a better, a more enlightened state of being that I could attain and that I could enjoy. And this is what I was after. And then seemingly out of nowhere, this energy was just sucked out. The seeking energy, it's also been called a contracted sense of separation, of being an individual in a world of individuals, being a thing in a world of many separate things. And that was this energetic shift, it's been called the falling away. It doesn't really matter the words necessarily, but what I'm trying to say is 1 minute I was there and I was separate and I was working on me and my life and I was in control of my life. I was the thinker of my thoughts, the feeler of my feelings, the captain of my ship. And that was just seemed to be sucked out. And this, the fact that everything was an appearance, and this appearance was this no thing being everything, this, I want to call it a oneness or a unicity, but it was just that all there is was this appearance. And that appearance taken to be real, that appearance taken to be a world of separate things was seen as an illusion. And it was seen not by a someone. It wasn't a realization for someone. So that's what I didn't understand when I was seeking. I thought it was a realization for someone, and then I would in turn be a better person. You know, I would in turn have these amazing insights into my life and how to operate and function better in the world. And I'd have this amazing, unflappable state of being where nothing bothered me and all that kind of stuff. And that's not what it was. It was just the really seeing, and it seems cliche, but that this is it. That there's just what's arising, including this appearance. So there wasn't me and the universe. There wasn't me plus everything else. There was just everything that's appearing. And there's nothing behind that. There's no source for that. There's no, this so-called awakening wasn't predicated on anything. There weren't a set of things I did for this to happen. And really, it seemed that nothing really ever happened because it was always this way. And I think that's the message, as far as I'm concerned, is that there is no place to get to. There's no arrival point. There's no things you can do to get to this imaginary arrival point, because there's no one separate. There's no one separate. There's no deeper reality. There's no, there's no, nothing to, and there's nothing against practices. I just signed up for a meditation course with my girlfriend, and because these bodies are still, apparently functioning in the world, and sometimes anxiety is felt here and stress, and you can see, oh yeah, if I sit down and calm everything down, and there is that. There is the day-to-day psychology and functioning, and it's very ordinary, but there's nothing other than this. There's nothing other than a train going by. There's nothing other than that feeling in the body. That's what's happening. And that's perfect. It's perfect, whole, and complete as it is already. And I don't know what else to say about it, but that was in the end the realization that it's always already, and it was always only ever this. And I wasn't broken. I wasn't cast out of heaven. There's just no separation. There's no one to be cast out. There's no heaven to be cast out of. So with that, I will pass it to Dawn. Thank you.
So yeah, it's interesting starting with the story. And I suppose in my own case, I wasn't really a seeker. So, I hadn't come across, I had just come across non-duality. I wasn't striving for that or anything. I was basically caught in what seemed like a bit of an adventure, a bit of living on the edge, struggle. I felt very trapped. So yeah, so I know from that time and what occurred, the experience of suddenly there just being love, and that not leaving, the love being everything, including me, including the end of division. And it swept all of that drama away, all of that struggle away. The person struggling gone, the whole history, the mind kind of blown by this. And like just being born into a new life, but not being separate from life, just being life. So, and not really being able to put it into words, not really being able to make sense about it or talk about it. There was nothing in the head. So the mind being blown for a long time. There was just the immediate, what's happening, and sort of the sense that one day I'll make sense of this or whatever, But yeah, so the beauty of that was just, for me, this being enough was a massive thing, that there was just this rest. And, you know, before that, there had been this idea that life, you know, life should be interesting, life should be colorful, it should be a certain way. And then just realizing it's just infinitely beautiful. It's, you know, everything I'd been looking for was just there and right in front of me, and was me. And, you know, and yeah, so yeah, so I think I always come back to my experience. So that seeing of everything and nothing, and just the intensification of perception, everything, I mean, the beauty and everything was just seen. And yeah, what else? Yeah, might just leave it there.
All right. Thank you, Dawn. So if you'd like to ask a question, just go ahead and raise your hand virtually. And then you can unmute yourself and ask your question, or type it in the chat. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
Hello, hi. I'd like to ask a question, and the question is, after your experiences of coming into non-duality, awakening, however you might term it, can you tell me if that intensity of feeling has faded?
Yes, I'd say so. There was an intensity, a sort of a shock at first, and just a, like a wow, an amazement. And because it was like shocking that there was no one here, there was no one anywhere, there was just the appearance of other bodies, but it was just so clear there was no one in those bodies, there was no one in this body, there was just, and so I'd say that walking around sort of in amazement like that it's just become normal, the extraordinary becoming ordinary. So I'd say for me, yes. How about you, Don?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, a lot of people talk in terms of a honeymoon period. So for me, in a sense, it's like life stopped. There was just this sitting around and really drinking it in, just really enjoying it, and because it was summer when it happened, it was May. So yeah, maybe a couple of years of that sort of thing. The absorption and the bliss states, it was a kind of ongoing bliss, very, very deep. So yeah, so I think I kind of, it sort of remained like that for me until maybe I started to realize that my life was kind of out of whack with the seeing, in a way, in some ways, not massively, but some patterns were still repeating. So I started to reflect on that, and then there was, change after that. But so for me, I could talk about almost like phases. I mean, not that the non-dual seeing has phases, but like kind of bringing life more into alignment with it. The seeing, which happened 2019. There's another kind of big bang, but that was more psychological, which changed my thinking on a lot of things. So yeah, and yeah, I think there's a certain time where don't find myself sitting around quite so much, but enjoying it when I do. So it's nice to sink into that absorption. But yeah, and initially it was very, very deep, and I was walking very, very slowly, which was, and probably looking a wee bit nuts because of it. I would be aware of that as well, because people would look at me like, is she on drugs? Maybe, because it was like, actually, the bliss seemed like sort of almost like substance, like thick, and it's like wading through bliss, like it just, mesmerized. Yeah, it was a very much like a heaven state, like, but yeah, you can't function like that. Like you can't, well, you can, but you do it very, very slowly. Like, I don't know, but I guess do you resonate with that then?
Well, the reason I'm asking the question is because, I think that there is in my experience, there's as you say, a honeymoon period, let's just call it, because I think our experiences are all very, very individual. There is for me, there was a bliss state. And I guess where I'm left now is that I'd love that back again. It's maybe not as extreme as it sounds for you and Walter. That whole non-duality, I mean, it sounds beautiful in a lot of ways, but it sounds quite extreme. Whereas for me, my experience was of the heart opening. It was an incredibly beautiful experience, and I stayed with it for a very long time. And it really has transformed my life. But the feeling is not as strong now. But how it has left me is that I am able to live life, go through life, and maybe come through difficulties easier. I don't feel there's so much anxiety or stress. I can come out of those periods quicker than I used to years ago before my awakening. So I suppose the question I'm asking is really, um, I'm aware that heart awakening and our perspectives there is more clarity, and we can come out of difficulties easier. But I'd love to have that feeling again. I'd love that feeling of bliss more intensely again. And I'm wondering whether that's possible.
All right. Do you know, like, I think it's like almost like falling in love, you just want to be around your lover the whole time, and you just hang out together, and then after that you get back into what you're into, and you meet up, and you come and you go. It's more, it's a bit like that in a sense, and it's kind of healthier. And like for me, my curiosity blossomed in 2019, so I got excited by ideas and books, and that all came back to me. So I wouldn't want to return, like I know what you mean. I mean, but the fact that it's fresh and new,
Yes.
you never recreate that, can you? Because it just wipes away what went before, is just bang, gone. And
For sure.
so in a way it could never be that, so I don't know, like I think I'm more excited about where I am now than going back to that, if you know what I mean, because
Okay. Interesting.
but it depends. I guess it depends. The exciting thing of finding what you're into and just following that. I mean, that for me was just like amazing, and the psychological insights and stuff that I've had since that period have just been. I mean, I just love all that stuff. The kind of internal change, the psychological changes. I mean, that's just it's fascinating. I find it fascinating because I think that's the one aspect of non-duality. Like people who have seen this, you can't really universalize it. I mean, you say you come through things quicker. I don't think that's a case for everyone. You know,
Okay.
maybe in a healthy psychology, maybe someone who's high on trait agreeableness or something like that, you know, they come through things quickly anyway, you know, so, you know, and the non-reaction, you know, depending on the type of trauma response you've got, like, I am so cautious to universalize on any of this stuff. And
Yes. Yeah, I understand.
I don't see it, like, I just don't see it in, you know, in my experience, like, you know, for me, I needed to react a bit more, like, you know, like, I could do with,
Okay.
you know, and I still have that.
Interesting.
Sometimes
Okay.
it can run against you if you have like no reaction, you know, like,
Sure. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, it's
But
just like,
there's this thing where I read somewhere recently, and I try not to do a lot of reading, but I've tried to understand what happened to me, and my experience was in 2019, and I think yours was in 2012.
that's right.
You've spoken about that before, but what I'm curious about is mine was in 2019, and I kind of like the way that it kind of transformed me in the most wonderful way, is to be able to just pull everything together in my life. It's taken years. I mean, we're in 2023 now, but that course of how I've changed and transformed, even though it was happening before that, if you want to call it coming into consciousness, I was coming into consciousness before 2019. I can see that quite clearly. The quietening within, the kind of, you know, what you might call becoming the observer. I was coming into all of that before 2019, and then my awakening happened. I wasn't aware of anything. I didn't even know the word existed. So
Oh,
it was
really?
complete.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, I wasn't working. I wasn't a seeker. I wasn't working towards anything. But I can see that my life and my, if you might call it, the pain and suffering was, I had to become quieter within. And that was my journey, becoming the observer, becoming quieter within. And then all of a sudden in 2019, I had this beautiful experience. So for me, it was great. It shifted me in my life into an even, you know, better place. Yeah. So yeah, we're all, what I'm finding from these discussions is that we're all very different. We're all very different in our experiences, aren't we?
Oh, okay. I guess you put it into your own words when you came across non-duality then, or could you speak about what had happened? Do you remember the kind of phrases you used or how you described it, like before you came across non-duality speakers? Because
Well, I didn't know anything about non-duality until about 3 months ago when I came across your group.
oh, but how would you have put it then before that? What would you said
Well,
happened?
yeah. So how I would explain it is that when I had my experience, literally out of nowhere, I had an experience of what I would just call uh, complete love, peace,
Okay.
love, completely washing into me, over me, through me. Absolutely phenomenal experience of just so much calm, unbelievable love,
All right.
and that with it came upon me kind of as I was reading book at about 9 p.m. at night. That was my experience, and it was absolutely beautiful. I can only say that. So for me, when I tried to fathom it out in the next few days and weeks, I could only make it out as being some sort of awakening, some sort of spiritual awakening.
Uh-huh.
And the whole non-duality, but what I felt after that and continued to feel was somewhat of a kind of, you know, a newness about life, a
Uh-huh.
oneness about life, um just a knowing. There was a huge amount of knowing that this is what it's about. This is what we're, you know, we're about. Now, all of that came into me, and I guess that was great for me on an individual level, and where I was in my life, it was absolutely phenomenal. And I actually feel quite privileged to have had that experience. And it has carried through. So we're a few years into it.
Mhm.
And I read somewhere recently that we can become, how can I say this? The wording was something like we can start going more back into the mind. I guess the egoic mind. We can become more, we can start going more into the mind as the years go on. That intensity of the awakening can kind of, become less intense, and we can start becoming more into the mind. So my question is, um, I want to be less in the mind.
Oh, really? The mind is great. I love
It is great. I use it a lot. Don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying is I also like the other experience. It's this whole group is about integrating, isn't it? It's
Yeah, yeah.
integrating non-duality. And for me, it's almost like, okay, I'd love that middle balance. I love the feeling of the heart opening and everything it brings into my life and for others around me. Yeah. I know that's been a huge benefit. And so I'm trying to integrate that.
Is the mind changed? Is it more neutral? Is it, I
Yes.
mean, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes. As you said, it's very difficult to live in the way of awakening or non-duality because everything is so much more intense. There's a lot more for me, there was a lot more strength of feeling. Whatever I felt, whether it was the beauty, whether it was the love, whether watching the news, there was sadness. There's an intensity of feeling. And it is difficult to live on a daily basis like that. That's quite difficult.
Oh, it's funny because I sort of think I think my perspective now would be that the mind is such a gift. And,
Okay.
I don't know, I just see it as almost like, you know, okay, living from this, but also having the mind, the mind comes and goes here, but I just think like I want to make the most of it while I'm here. Like I really do. And I just mean that I never had that before. So I couldn't live
Ah,
before awakening and I couldn't live after. I was just,
ah, yes.
so it
Okay.
wasn't like I was in my own way, in my kind of quirky way, but it was very unconventional. But yeah, so, but the mind, yeah, more neutral and certainly, more in line with what I'm interested in. It's not so much the struggle stuff. Before that would have been conflict, much more of the struggle stuff. I do get some of that, very little though. I mean, it goes very,
Okay.
but some people do have more problematic psyches.
Yes.
Um,
That's what I'm talking about. Exactly. Yeah. So
but
for
yours
you,
is,
that has also been easier in terms of less conflict, but actually, so what are the benefits would you say you have then?
what, from post awakening, like in
Yeah.
the whole thing, like,
Yeah.
um, well, the intimacy, being able to have that in relate, I had a problem with commitment and stuff like that
Ah,
before the awakening. So
yeah.
that all went, the intimacy with everything, obviously fear and anxiety sort of went. Yeah, everything seemed to run quite smooth. But again, like in my case, the patterns were repeating but not affecting me. And I think we talked about this before, like where you're
Yes.
in something toxic and you're not reacting to it and you think so it's massive to recognize that's going on and to change that um
Yeah.
because what is in a sense, like what is the, and there isn't a point to this, there doesn't have to be a point to this, but in this, in another sense there is. It's like what, you get this opportunity to start again, in a sense, like
Yeah.
which is great. And you're living the old way, like, and getting trapped in the same shit. It finds you, even if you're not looking for it, it will recreate around you.
Yes.
It just does. And then you see
Yes.
through that, it might be psychotherapy, might be just, in my case, experiences of other dimensions, whatever. And suddenly, you know, you start to turn another corner, which, I mean, I love that. There's different chapters in life, aren't there? And the fact that
Yeah.
life can change after this is just really exciting. I mean, not all of it can change. Maybe there's bits are stuck because of other really other reasons or whatever, it's not always
Yeah.
possible. Just because you recognize something internal doesn't mean to say it manifests externally, because, you know, circumstances can be all sorts of ways, right? You know, we can be caught in so
Yeah.
many different ropes, different kind of knots, and like, you know,
Yeah.
it's not always
So
straightforward.
do you,
I just find, because I'm interested in psychology,
yes.
I'm just constantly, I find my kind of, I don't know, sort of, you find your purpose as well. Like if you find that,
Yes.
you're kind of why I'm here, it feels like that's kind of so sort of kind of where I'm at, where I've kind of know what direction I'm, you know, wanting to go in, and I'm going in,
Yeah.
albeit slowly.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
do
No,
you have
same. I'm interested in, yeah, I'm interested in psychology, human dynamics, relationships. That's also been where I'm, the angle that I come in from. So do you find that you don't react as you used to? Is that one of the benefits? And do you find that you are very good at that now?
well, I never was a big reactor, like, as in, you know, I wasn't a fight responder. I got caught up in a drama where I was like, how do I explain that? So uh, yeah, if someone was angry with me, I wouldn't inflame me, because that's just
Okay.
not my psychology. So it's
Yes.
kind of the same now, but I don't struggle. It's more the conflict and stuff like that. Like,
Okay.
yeah, so, and realizing now the recognition of, well, I may not get annoyed at something, but I can see it's wrong or it's harmful, or, you know, so there's more consciousness, there's more awareness of
Yes.
what the fuck I'm doing. And
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. So if you're faced with a situation, that consciousness in you can make out, okay, this isn't, this doesn't sit well with me. It isn't right. But you're able to not not activate anything, not react.
yeah, but yeah, it'd be kind of handy sometimes,
Yes.
you know, if you did, I know I think you probably resonate with that. That's my sense.
Mm.
No, or not.
I'm asking the question because obviously there in life, what happens is, before awakening, after awakening, whatever, life still goes on. The dynamics that we have around us, I mean, let's just talk about relationships, the relationships that we have around us and the difficulties that we all face, whether it's at work, whether it's with our partner, our children, whatever, all those that we face, we have still those decisions to make, or those, the moral dilemma, the moral dilemmas. And it's almost like, in a way, almost makes it more difficult because consciously, being conscious, we are aware more of, our own reactions, our own kind of, reality, or how we see things, our own perspectives. But we're also aware of the others as well. So it makes it doubly difficult, because it's almost as if before, it's like, well, I could only really see my own perspectives. I could only be upset in my ways. I could only react because there was an injustice to me, for instance. Let's just say, even though I saw the bigger picture. But now it's almost as if I see the other person more than I did before.
Oh
So
yeah.
that means that dilemma that I've not now got, how do I react? How do I behave? How do I conduct myself? It's in some ways it's harder, but I know that I know it comes from the heart. I know the heart, for me, it comes from the heart. I know there is just this way to be, it has to be, the kindest way for everybody. That's the consciousness in me, but it's not easy.
I find it quite straightforward. There's certain things I've kind of, there's certain situations where I've had to learn that it's better to be inauthentic, if you're dealing with
Oh,
someone
okay.
toxic or something, because, if you want to minimize the abuse, you want to minimize, not to trigger them, not to get into a worse scenario, not to give more energy, because everything you do to try to, if you waste, I think Richard Grannon is great in this. He says, don't waste sincerity on the insincere. You know, in a toxic situation, anything you do, say that's sincere, trying to clarify something, will be weaponized and used against you. So I know to be inauthentic and, and just keep it very, very plain and basic when I'm dealing with someone toxic.
Okay.
It's some of it is just learning for me, and the rest of it is just, it's just natural. Like there's no protecting my vulnerability when I'm with someone who I feel safe with, and I can recognize, I feel like now I can recognize people I can be safe with.
So that's the question, Dawn. Really, that's the hub of this here. So where I know I'm facing someone who isn't conscious, I feel like I'm going into the lion's den, right? Yeah, it's that dilemma in me as to I want to bring in the goodness, I want to go in there with goodness, but I know it's going to be completely trashed.
Okay. Well, okay. Yeah. Okay. So there's part of you thinks you can change it or fix it or something.
No, I don't want to change it or fix it. I know I can't, but for me, I don't want to worse. I don't want to walk away being conscious. I don't want to walk away feeling I didn't work from the heart.
That's where you're stuck then.
Yeah.
Because it's, you've got to look after yourself. And when what about your heart? It's affecting you.
Yes.
And it's not there's nothing coming back. And I know this come up before, like, I mean, why are you attracted to that? And if you saw the internal state of the person you're talking about walking into a lion's den.
Yeah.
It won't be sadness. It won't be hurt they're feeling. It will be anger and rage. And if you saw inside their mind, okay, if you saw inside their mind, you would hate them. Like, you know, if they were turned inside out, you wouldn't be around, you know, because it's easy for us to project our own state. Even after awakening, you think, all right, oh, they're awake, they're like me. It's bullshit, right? So yeah, it's, I don't know, just like, you know what I'd say, I said it before, like, yeah, you're maybe a trauma bond there, maybe there's that, and that sort of codependency thing. If I give them,
it is,
you know,
I recognize that. Yeah,
but you know, you have to see that it's going to repeat, and nothing, I mean, you're not going to heal them. It's probably unhealable. Like they can change a little bit, but it's usually superficial and it doesn't last. So
yeah. But you face this, right? In your life as well. You must face this. We all face these situations, awakened or not. We all face them.
Yeah, but I mean, I find it easy to have the acceptance around the fact that someone is not going to change. So someone is toxic is probably not going to change. You know, it depends how toxic they are, but more or less, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean it's easy to extricate yourself. That might not mean, you know, you can get your life wrapped up with someone as well. So I don't know what you're, you know, what it is you're trying to protect, why this person.
I suppose more than anything, I'm trying to protect them.
Okay.
That's how I think.
You got to protect yourself. I mean, you got to, some part of you, like, it's funny because unworthiness can survive this too, or like, even though there's no unworthiness there, do you know what I mean? Like some of this stuff is just playing out because it was there before. So
yes,
it may just be, I just, you know, my impulse is, just to see what you're doing, the pattern, and get out. Like, but
okay, I get it. Yeah,
you're stuck. Like, don't forget that the mind gets very excited by that trauma bond, doesn't it? So
yes,
it'll be bad, and then good. You'll get a few crumbs off the table, then it'll be really shit. But when it's good, you think, oh, it's good now. I'll stay. Like,
no, I'm not getting. I'm not going to go into those cycles. I already know that. I'm very aware of what's going on there. So yeah, it's really a big one for me. But yeah, I appreciate that. Sorry, I've taken up so much time, but I really appreciate it.
It's
Thank
fine.
you so much.
Well, it's nice
Thank you. And you. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Andrew had his hand up. You still want to ask a question, Andrew?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Yeah, a lot resonated with the conversation that we're having then. I guess a thought that came to my mind was sort of the work of Eckhart Tolle came to mind, and the way that he sort of divides between being and doing. And I guess, Dawn, initially you were stuck in the being state very much, and I resonate with that a lot. My question was more around practice, actually, and whether either of you still do some type of formal meditation practice, or insight meditation, in order to either maintain. And it's a bit of a paradox, because obviously it's just about paying attention now and wherever you are, and just the practice is ongoing all the time, every day, for every second. But do you do any sort of formal sitting, I suppose, is the question.
Well, I mentioned at the beginning, I just signed up. You said insight meditation. That's exactly what I'm going to be doing, which I've done some of before. And I look at it the same way as, like, if I had a headache, I might take an aspirin or something like that. I notice there's a lot of restlessness, and so it's just a means to tune into that, and just to tune in and just to sit and be present. Plus, I think it'd be something good to do with my partner, and just a way to settle down, settle the body down, because there's still a functioning here, and there's still a body, and a parent body, and a parent time and space, walking around and having a life. And so it's different than the seeking, in the sense that I was trying to get somewhere else, whereas I see the insight meditation as I'm really just, if anything, slowing down and trying to be more present to what is, to the immediacy, to what's, tuning into the feelings and sensations that are in the body, and to be aware of what thoughts are arising, and which is beautiful, and so that's the difference. I was looking to escape before from this so-called reality, and then yeah, it's just taking care of this thing, that's the way I look at it. But anyway, so the answer is yes, definitely interested in that. I have practiced it, and just like I enjoy doing yoga, meditation. It's just a way, maybe somebody might take a bath. Just I believe it's a part of self-care, for me anyway. So how about you, Dawn? Meditation?
Yeah, like you're saying, it's like a bath. Actually, it's quite good. But I haven't done something regular for a while now. I normally do. And yeah, so I would sit for 15, 20 minutes maybe in the morning. Yeah, with a mantra, the Hare Krishna mantra, as it is my brother's Hare Krishna. I just remember that since I was a kid. Yeah, so it's just something I regularly do. But yeah, of course, it's not for any purpose apart from self-care, as you say, Walter. And yeah, so also during my so my sleep's not great, but I find myself very often with that mantra kind of running through, and it does raise the Kundalini as well, I think. So I quite like that, because it's quite nice to get some energetic stuff going on. But yeah, so, and also just sitting, sometimes just sitting as well, like in the park, that's a different thing. I mean, there is a taboo about talking about this. I know a lot of people don't really talk about meditation, but yeah, there's something about just sitting also, like, just because it's pleasurable, and it never used to be. And I sort of think, sometimes I have to remind myself to do that. Just take 10-15 minutes out just to sit and enjoy the fact that it's enjoyable, and just, you know, in nature it's really lovely. But yeah, no, it's I can definitely feel the effects of it. It's a different thing, you know. It is, no, yeah, on a health level for sure. I think it does make a difference. So yeah, I've got to get back into it. But I like meditating with someone else. It's quite nice doing it. I haven't done that in a long time, but yeah, it's quite nice in a group or with someone else. It feels kind of quite intense at times. So that can be quite exciting. So yeah, we'll have to do that. So yeah. Cool.
Any other questions? Just feel free to raise your hand. Oh, Andrew.
Sorry, I had another one. I wonder whether you'd come across Douglas Harding's work, and The Headless Way, which for me, so I was listening to a lot to Sam Harris's At Waking Up, which is sort of not where I began, but certainly what propelled my sort of practice every day, and just to sort of make sure that I'm staying aware. But it was really listening to, I can't think of it, Richard something, who took up Douglas Harding's work.
Richard Lang.
That's it, Richard Lang. Yeah, it was listening to a podcast with him and Sam, and I was just walking along the high street, and then all of a sudden it switched. You know, it was no longer me and everything else. It was awareness that, you know, I was them, they were me, but in yeah, it was really powerful actually. And you know, I'm in and out of those stages. I'm not permanently in one or the other. And I think, just relating to what Joe was saying before about, you know, this feeling of finding it difficult, or you know, the conversation about finding it difficult to be in the world but not of the world, maybe, is one way to put it. And I think that balance has started to come into view now. But yeah, I was just interested whether you'd come across his work, which it sounds like you have, because you mentioned Richard Lang. But also, you know, whether that's the same experience for anyone else, whether it is a case that you can switch it on, right, and it's available to you. But I'm not always in that state, and actually, sometimes it doesn't serve me to be, right. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah.
Well, I came across Richard Lang and Douglas Harding and The Headless Way. I checked it out, but it didn't really resonate for me. So I don't know what else to say about that. But yeah, there's no one. I mean, there's just no switching it on or off. I don't think there's an off switch. You know, this thing, this appearance just seems to be on. It's just on for no one. It's just on, you know. So there's no one in it, you know. There's just no experience of on or off. Or I think it was just the disappearance of there being a relationship to something else. You know, there's just the appearance of a relationship to other things. But it was just realized there's no objective reality. That so there's no so anyway, I'm just the way I share this message is there's no practice or technique or method like pointing at yourself and all this stuff. There's no attempt to wake anybody up or anything. You know, there's no intention behind what's being said. It's just saying there is no one. There's only what's apparently happening, but there's no objective truth. There's no objective reality. There's no, you know, the headless way is a concept.
Sure. Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
I
there's not,
completely
yeah, yeah.
agree that these are just pointers, right, to point the way to the truth that's sort of ineffable in many ways. But yeah, there is something, I think, in it for me in terms of formal practice that does lead to that and sustain that awakening, right? I was interested actually when you mentioned the idea of no reality. Are you talking phenomenologically, right? So just by experience, rather than making a claim about metaphysics outside of you.
Right. I'm just saying that there aren't separate things, but that seems to be what's happening. Is that there's a train behind me?
Mhm. Yeah.
But it's just, I don't know, it was just seeing that the train, it's all one appearance.
Mm. From
And,
experience, right?
and
Experientially.
well, it was, you could say it was an experience for no one because there's no separate thing to experience something, you know,
Mm.
but it
Mm.
was just what seemed to happen. See, that's why they say even that so-called experience is a story,
Mm.
because even that didn't happen.
Mhm. Yeah. I guess for me, it's more like from a phenomenological perspective, I understand the experience that you, or when we've got to use words, right? Because and obviously when we use words, we're limiting things necessarily, but that's all I've got to use. That the experience itself of non-duality doesn't make therefore a claim about reality itself, right? It's reality from the perspective of the experience, or of the non-self experiencing, if you want to put it that way, rather than an ontological claim about the fact that there are no things. I just wanted to see whether that's something that you agree with, that it's a phenomenological claim, not an ontological one.
Yeah, there's no claim. There's no claim of any kind of truth. But it would, the only thing I can share is that seeking energy of being a separate person who felt apart from everything else had vanished in that moment. And then the only thing that could be, say, shared was that even that didn't really happen because there was no separation in the first place. So there wasn't a separation and then the wholeness. It was just always whole. But yeah, there's no knowing of that. There's no one to know any of this. But there is an experience that people have. It's been called, the experience of the individual or the me. That there is the separation, that people are seeking oneness, seeking wholeness. That's why it's often shared that this is what's being longed for, because this has always been whole, complete, perfect. And this has never been otherwise. It's only an imagined separation. It's imaginary. It's some say energetic. It's hard to say because it's not real. It's not actual.
Yeah. I like it sort of being put in the idea that idea of being a separate self is based on identifying with like a stream of thinking, right? So some stream of thinking that you call you. I think that's the way that Tolle might put it, and it's that identification with that self is the idea that yeah, you buy into my story, my life, and it's that which makes it feel like there's a you, right? Once you identify with that, and as you become more and more awake, you realize that that really is just appearing in consciousness, right? And the only thing that really, really is always there and never changing is consciousness. So yeah,
I guess the only thing is it's not just a way of thinking, because then you could just change your thinking and so-called wake up, you know. In other words, if it's just a thought that there is a me and that there's free will and choice and that there is separation, and then all I need to do is realize that that's an illusion and realize there is no free will, and realize, you know, and just kind of adopt a new set of ideas, beliefs, and concepts. You know, it's not just switching seats on the Titanic. It's not just changing your mind about things or changing your beliefs or getting rid of old beliefs and adopting new ones. There's nothing to do with that.
sure, yeah, but it is becoming aware of that, and yourself as awareness, rather than rather than changing mind. So you know, you're not seeing that stream of thinking and going, oh, you know, that's not real, and then grasping onto some other concept. You know, it really is letting go of all concepts. Yeah, I mean, total agreement with that.
But you know, there's also there's no letting go.
Well, it's a paradox, isn't it? Because we've got to use some words for this, and I do think there is a sort of letting go, because you're not grasping anymore, because grasping is a concept, right? So to be in the present moment, then you have to let go of any prior thought that was you somehow. So there is, it's a revelation, let's say. It's not something that you earn, you don't, you know, it's a gift. You could say grace, you could use whatever term that you like.
I'd go with that more than letting go, because
yeah,
they call like a veil being lifted, but I didn't
yeah.
lift the veil. It
No, I
was,
didn't lift. Yeah,
there was
yeah,
no
yeah,
effort on my part,
yeah,
or, you know, letting go or realizing or changing thoughts or letting go of beliefs, or, you know, learning how not to grasp,
sure.
you know,
Yeah,
learning how
sure,
not
sure.
to be attached. It was just, it just
Yeah,
vanished.
yeah.
And all there was this absolute perfection that can show up as anything. You know, that's why they say unconditional love, for example.
Yeah.
It's unconditional. So, and there's no accepting of that, or letting go of something I used to believe in. It's just, this is it. This is what seems to be happening.
Sure.
Don, you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was just thinking, well, sometimes it sounds a bit heady, doesn't it? Like grasping can arise in the moment, attachment can arise in the moment, but it's just not an ongoing thing, is it? And I don't know, for me, it's quite simple. It's just, you know, before there's a sense of being in here, and that's just completely collapsed, as has the sense of weight and location. I mean, it's just a different experience. So, but it doesn't diminish my thoughts, and you know, if you know what I'm thinking and the importance of that in the only life that, you know, there's still a person here, the identity's gone, but it's like, and the experience is different, but it's all just as important as it was before. That stuff, I mean, it's held differently for sure, it's experienced differently, but you know, I don't know, it's just so misleading, whatever you say about this, really. But yeah, it's yeah, just nothing here, I guess. But yeah, it doesn't come and go. That sometimes the non-dual, the kind of absorption seems to go up, and you're much more aware of it, for sure, and sometimes less so. You're just in what you're in, whatever it is, a conversation, writing, doing whatever it is that you're doing. And but like, you know, I don't know. That's probably not helpful. I don't know, but
Anybody else in the Zoom? Anything else, Andrew?
No, I think it's one of those things, isn't it? It is very difficult to talk about, but I do think the language is useful pointers, right? It's all useful pointers to try and talk about what it means to just be what is. Maybe that's the way to put it, to be I am, to be to be and not to be, right, at the same time, I suppose. But yeah, I was just interested to see whether it changed any metaphysical views or not really. And I mean, for me, it hasn't. I do see this just as a experiential, it's phenomenological. It's to do with realization that there is no spooky single self, there is no permanent self, and it's just that realization, and that's all it is. But that doesn't then give me any better weighting on what reality really looks like outside of that experience, because reality wholly is that experience for me, and presumably for every other conscious being of the human species. So or when they realize it, or if they realize it. And yeah, there is, I still believe that there's a physical world outside of me, quote unquote, outside of me, right? And that this claim to inner freedom, this claim to liberation from identifying with a self, is not a claim about the fabric of reality, except insofar as it relates to the experience of that everything appears in consciousness, and I am consciousness, right? And yeah, so I just wondered whether anyone else has shifted their belief to some state to say that no, this is really an ontological claim now because we've experienced it, and I wondered whether anyone's taken that leap or not.
Well, I have some, I think we covered, did we cover that, Andrew? Or
I wasn't sure whether, are we in agreement that the physical world exists as well?
unknowable, isn't it? Like, I mean, it is. How would you know that? Like, I mean, I take it for granted when I go outside, there's going to be a world there, right? Like, I don't question that. But
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So it hasn't shifted any sort of metaphysical
no,
views.
not
No.
nothing.
Okay. No. Okay. That was, yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
let's see, first one, this is from the chat. Sleep. He wants to know, does it have anything to do with the unself? I'm not sure I'm understanding this question. What do you think about people who take DMT and all these other drugs that mess with their brain, that think it's all spiritual, and then it makes them enlightened? Does it have anything in common with this message? I would say no, doesn't have anything to do with this message, because this message is just saying that whatever arises, whatever appears, whatever is in this immediacy, this is it. This is no thing being everything. There is no one that's not enlightened that needs to take some plant medicine and then to become enlightened. there can be insights and things when taking those drugs and whatever, but it never seems to resonate with me as being the same message. It's always about a separate person having an experience. And that's what I was seeking. That's what I thought it would be. I thought me as a separate individual is going to have an enlightenment experience. That this thing is not enlightened. There's just no one in here to be enlightened. It's the same as it always was. The only difference is there's no belief that there's anyone here running his life. And as far as like a physical world, there's just no one to know that. There's no one to make any claims about what's real. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know about taking DMT and all that. How about you, Don? Thoughts on psychedelics?
Well, a bit like you, yeah, insights. Some people have, I mean, it's quite common to have glimpses, I think, on them. I think I had that when I was 18, taking acid. Yeah, I had the experience of unconditional love. Didn't know what it was, but anyway, well, I didn't know, and I didn't. So yeah, for some people, yeah, it's definitely worth taking for some. But it's so individual, isn't it? And you go into it with your eyes wide open as well, like if you've got a lot of trauma or whatever. But yeah, don't know that it's associated at all with kind of ongoing awakening. I think it's more glimpses. I haven't really heard of that, so, and I don't know how much changes afterwards, like, but I'm definitely not anti it. Do what you want, like that's, but you think it's different? Do you think when you come back from the drug then, Walter, like it's not held in the same way, or not? Like, have you ever had a glimpse on something, or?
No, I don't think I've ever had a glimpse on something.
All right. Okay.
So maybe I'm not the best person to ask, but yeah, it just seems like if there's a oneness experience, then it's a separate person having a oneness experience. And that, it's never really the same as there just being no one. It's always someone having an experience, someone attaining some insight, rather than the absence of, I don't know, that's just the way it seems here. But I've never actually been successful taking mushrooms or anything. Nothing's really ever happened to me taking those things. I tried twice. Just so it felt like I don't think I took enough. I don't know.
Don't think you took enough.
Yeah.
I was there. So, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I didn't get out of it the last time either, but yeah, the first time I took, definitely the first time I took acid. But if you don't know what it is, I don't know if it had any impact on me. That was an exciting time. It certainly was, discovering Huxley, and like it all seemed, there wasn't non-duality really around then, so it was Huxley and perennial philosophy, all that kind of stuff, and I don't know, doors of perception, and I kind of stumbled onto that afterwards, bit of Kahil Gibran and Sufi stuff maybe. Yeah, it's cool. It can be exciting though, psychological insights too. I mean, there's a lot can come of it. So I don't know. There's always that sense of responsibility because I'm a psychotherapist, because I don't want someone taking it and having a really bad time. Like, so yeah, it's like, yeah.
And it doesn't seem to really end the seeking, which I think is also the point, is the end of seeking. And so often I notice they just keep taking this stuff and having more and more experiences, which is great, but
Hmm.
it's not like, oh, that was it. It's kind of like non-duality seems very final, like in the sense that it's like, that's it. Like, there's no need to seek because this is it. Like the DMT experience doesn't seem to have that component because they keep having to go back to it. I don't know.
I think any of those experiences, like energetic ones, are so much nicer without the drugs. Just like, the clarity of that feeling normal and having those experiences much more exciting, for sure. But if you haven't got access to that, that's not happening. I suppose that's a way to experience some of that, different realms, insights and stuff. But so yeah, I don't know.
All right, we got another question here from Robbie. He says, how did Dawn survive during the bliss state? He wants to know, how did you survive, like, financially, he says. So I'm guessing if you're incapacitated, how did you survive?
How did I survive? There was no one to survive. Yeah, it was like a death. So yeah, no, I wasn't working at the time, so yeah, so there was more time to sit around. So there wasn't much to worry about in that sense, just sitting in the sun, sitting in benches, yeah, sitting on my balcony, looking at the sky. Yeah, it's just so it happened at a very good time. So for me, but I didn't say I was incapacitated. It wasn't like, I couldn't do stuff. It was just, you don't have to be absorbed all the time in a way either. It's not like I couldn't snap out of that. Like, if someone saw me walking really, really slowly, I could speed up. It was just so enjoyable to walk slowly and be absorbed. The same as when Kundalini asanas, like, or the Kriyas kicked off. I could stop them. Like it did feel within my control to do so. I know I'm saying the words "my" and "control," but I know exactly what I mean. It's not like it's not like I was stuck in that. And I think that's the way it's commonly experienced. So maybe in some cases it's uncontrollable. I don't know. So I haven't come across that. And but yeah, it's not great if you're really, really absorbed to do anything that involves writing essays and you've got no mind. It's probably better that like you've got some thought going on, because the bliss was so absorbing. It's so much nicer just being bliss and being a book. But yeah, so yeah, I don't recommend it. I don't recommend writing essays being bliss, but maybe some people can manage it better than others. But
All right. Next question's from Kingdale Clark. He says, Tim Kliss has said, you can't get away from being human. He says, we are nothing very much, but also that we have to still pretend to live our lives. We still have apparent responsibilities. Do you agree?
to pretend to live our lives, it doesn't really feel like that. Like, does it feel like you're pretending to live your life? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't resonate, and I have a hard time believing that's an exact quote from Tim Kliss, but I can't imagine him saying that we have to pretend to live our lives.
Well, maybe if you didn't think about it, you could say something like that, but no, it doesn't feel like that at all. You just live your life, right? It doesn't feel like a pretense. There's sometimes it's interesting when you're talking and having a conversation or something, and the non, the recognition of this, and it can be a little bit odd. Like, you know, because you're not that conversation, and yet it's going on, but you are as well, sort of. It can be a little bit, it is different, like it is, but yeah, it's not a sense of pretense. Sounds horrible, sounds really uncomfortable, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, it just doesn't resonate, any of that. You can't get away from being human.
Yeah, there's no getting away from that, that's for sure. There's definitely no getting away from that. Well,
Yeah,
you know,
there's-
it feels like you almost can for a while, you know, like. So sorry, I'll do you.
I would say there's obviously this apparent human experience happening. But there's no one having a human experience. There's obviously no one who get away from the human experience. But there's no one that needs to pretend. There's just living, you know? Like, I'm not going to pretend I don't see all that, you know, when you ask me about a physical world, yeah, it's ordinary. That's why we say it's ordinary. It's the same as it always was. There's a solid table here. But there's just no one having that experience. And there's no actual box there, but there's no one that knows that either. So the next question, Daryl Sanders says, hey, Walter and Don, do either of you feel compelled to talk about non-duality or to do these videos? Do you feel compelled, Don?
Very, very strongly compelled. No, I mean, it's just, yeah, I mean, there's so many reasons why I could say I'm doing this, but at the end of the day, I don't know. Like, I think I'm curious about the psychological after awakening, but yeah, there's no compulsion to do this. Or to speak about awakening, really. I don't find the non-dual particularly interesting, which makes it more interesting while I'm here. But it's actually becomes quite boring to listen to, as you probably know, because the seeker dies, right? So I don't find it particularly interesting listening to any of, you know, I don't listen to non-dual speakers, but the personal experiences of other non-duality speakers are interesting. I mean, I find that interesting, but what about you, Walter? Are you feeling compelled to do, you do interviews and lots of things, so is it compulsion?
Yeah, it's fun. It's something to do. Seems to be a hobby. But yeah, I'm not like evangelical non-duality. You know, I'm not trying to spread this message or wake anybody up or anything like that. It's like the joy is in it feels joyful to do this, to talk about it with people, to engage with people, to interview people from all over the world. And it's you know, I also play the drums, you know, some people paint. It just seems like something creative to do with my time. And I'm not sure about compelled, but it could all go away tomorrow and I move on to something else, you know, it'd be okay. I don't feel, you know, attached to it necessarily. So yeah, I feel, I guess, motivated to do it. Yeah, because I'm doing it.
There's
Seems to
something
be.
nice about you know, the
No,
feeling.
I'm done.
All right, you know, the feeling when you're talking about this, there's something about that, like there's a kind of connection, isn't it? It's not the same as talking about anything else, is it? There is something that goes with that that's slightly energetic as well, I feel. I mean, it's quite subtle, but it's there, maybe. I don't know, but when I'm away from it, like I haven't done this in a while. I haven't done any talks for about 6 weeks now, and I don't miss it. In some ways, it's like, oh, good, don't need to do that again. But yeah, it's nice when I do it. I do enjoy it, but Compulsion. Yeah, there's not lots of compulsive thoughts, not compulsive anymore. Anything that was compulsive seems to have fallen away. Like, yeah, I think. You got any compulsive habits, Walter?
I don't think so. Got another question here. Do you guys think the shift happened when doing self-inquiry?
There's kind of natural self-inquiry went on. The sort of like prior to the seeing of kind of emptiness that sort of happened before I had the love experience, like for about a year before, and that was kind of weird. Like, seemed to be into the mind, like, seeing that I wasn't that, but it seemed like I was asking questions very, very quickly, like, but they were spontaneous. It wasn't me asking them. It was kind of going on, and the experience of nothing being there, being no person. So there was something like that, but it was spontaneous, and I'd never heard of self-inquiry, but something like that went on initially. Can't remember exactly because it's a long time ago, but yeah, because I've listened to people talk about self-inquiry, and I think it's quite, some people get something out of it, but I think it's quite confusing. I can imagine it being very confusing to people, or else you may sort of be quite suggestible and think, oh, I get this, and I don't really see what people get out of it really, but if you do, you do, so.
Yeah, it's not something that speaks to me, self-inquiry. Because as I described in the beginning, it's just spontaneous. It wasn't a result of doing self-inquiry. But I know a lot of people do that. It's popular for sure. I just don't have much to say about it. Well, we got a few minutes left. So anybody want to just jump in, ask a question, make a comment? Feel free. Joe, go for it.
Hi again. It's me again. Just to say, I've really enjoyed the questions and answers this evening, and I just want to ask a quick question about attachment to both of you, what that means, and how it is now.
You want to go, Walter?
Oh, attachment. Okay, attachment. Just in general, or attachment to anything particular?
Yeah, I suppose like in my, what I would think of my, previously, attachments were very strong, to family members, to relationships, to, elements of life. All of those attachments were so strong and so binding, and that was the struggles for me. And so I know that's all, how can you put it, softened. It's not important. And I just wondered what your experience is with your non-duality. What happened to all that? Did it all, disintegrate? Did it all dissolve? And where are you up to with it now?
I think it's pretty much the same. It's just no one to be attached, but there is a love and a connection with my children and girlfriend and my job. And, you know, there's attachments to things in my life that seem important. So yeah, it's hard to answer because there's just I'm not having these attachments, you know, but there is a love here and there is an appreciation here, and for certain things in my life. So I guess you call those attachments, but they, you know, I guess at one point maybe they defined who I was. They were a part of my identity, and all kinds of things like that. So some of that may have shifted.
Yes.
You
But
know,
would you say that it's less, almost like it's less personal?
yeah, I don't know about that.
Mm. It's a difficult one to describe. Yeah, that's why I'm asking you.
It is difficult because it's really, you know, as far as I'm concerned, it's almost irrelevant to talk about the differences before and after these kinds of things, because I think the message is just saying, you know, there's no one here. There's no author of my thoughts and feelings. There's no one being attached. There's no one responsible for these attachments. Um, there's no one feeling I shouldn't be attached, or I should be attached, or I should be less attached, or like I was saying earlier about grasping that, you know, whatever is happening is what's apparently happening. It's what's arising. So if love and attachment and a feeling of connecting, being connected to something or someone, that's just what's happening. And it's not seen as something that needs to change or something that needs to be let go of, or, you know, I don't want to be detached and aloof and all that. But I don't see that as a goal. But anyway, yeah. So in a way, it's really not pertinent to the subject of non-duality to talk about attachments.
Yeah.
But we
Okay.
can talk about attachments. That's why I say, well, really, it hasn't changed because it's just seen the exact same way. Only there's just no one here having those attachments, but those apparent attachments still continue on.
Yeah.
And yeah, so when I hear gurus speaking as if they don't care whether their children live or die and all this kinds of stuff, I don't relate to it at all.
Yeah, I know, because there was a caller last time. Last time there was a caller who'd had an experience. It was the guy running around the hospital or something. And I remember being quite shocked at what he was saying exactly about that. I think the lady asked him, so okay, if your child was about to be run over, would you not feel anything? And I think he almost replied, no, because it's not really happening. And I think in these kind of discussions, that is quite shocking to hear. But I don't know. I can't relate to that at all. But I guess it's words again, isn't it? So there's obviously a love. There's a love there, which is love for your children, you know, love for what you're doing. Yeah, it's just that word attachment is used in a lot of texts, isn't it? Spiritual texts or whatever. And I was just wondering what your meaning of that all is. There is love there. It, yeah,
Maybe because there's less of the neediness. So it's like for me, it's the attachment's there, but maybe I'm not so aware of it generally. And then you are where you are, maybe you're with your family or whatever. And I mean, there's so much more if you brought into that. I think you like, you know, so you're wholly there. You're much more of all the different parts of yourself. I mean, that's my experience, and much
yes,
more
yes,
my authentic self,
Yes.
and that's changed over the years. There's much more of it now, like, but so there's that beautiful, and you really experience, you're really, really attached in that moment, but it's not like it dissolves, just not so aware of it, but it's constant. It is there, like, you know, like fear of loss could come up in a moment, but it's not something you're living with, like the fear
Yes.
of death, which could come up if you know, something bad happened or something. Like, it's, yeah, you're not really living from it. So because I think because life's enough as well, like, it's, so, you know, I mean, it's not to say you can't miss someone, but it's not the same. You're not pining or
Yes, exactly.
it's just easier, I think, in that sense, because you can, there's a lot more space, I suppose, in a healthy way.
Yeah.
For them and for
Yeah,
you.
it's difficult to put into words, but I think you're right. It's almost that that disappearance of neediness is yeah, what you've said, Dawn. Yeah, I resonate with that for sure. Thank you. I know it's not easy to talk about, but I'm sure that's a curiosity. And when
Yeah.
I read it now, it's still a curiosity of the words that are used. I mean, I don't read a lot, but I can see, you know, how people might want to know more about it or be curious about it. And I think the words sometimes can be quite misleading for people because we're reading things very literally, but actually having the experience, you know, well, it's, yeah, yeah, you
Yeah.
can't put it into words sometimes, but no, thank you for that. I resonate with that as well. Yeah, thank you, Walter.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you for everybody on YouTube and in the Zoom. If you'd like to attend another one of these, I will be having one at 7:00 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 7:00 tonight, Eastern Time. There'll be a Zoom with Chadwick, and we'll be talking about mindfulness and non-duality. So you can come back for that. And most every Monday we'll have something on this channel, interview. Once a month we'll be doing this, not just this, with Don Garland, and we'll let you know when that will be. Other than that, Don, you have anything?
On the 8th of September, I've got my meeting, my London meeting, in the Philadelphia Association. That's on Meetup if anyone's interested. Just the details are there. So that's all I know for now. Right.
All right. Well, thank you, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.